As a lot of you may remember from my past reflections, my high school and college years were not a great time. My mental health was at an all-time low due to undiagnosed PTSD. But one thing that always made me happy was visiting my sister, Alicia. She is 3 years older than me and was studying zoology at Washington State University. A summer trip to spend time with her was just what I needed. And it definitely didn't hurt that she volunteered at the exotics ward of the veterinary teaching hospital, which included their injured raptors, also known as birds of prey. Seeing a beautiful yet blind bald eagle named Amicus, which means friend, was one thing. But the critters that ended up really stealing my heart were rats. At the time, an incredible amount of inbred pet rats were rescued from a hoarding case in a local home. Wazoo was having their vet students spay or neuter the rats and try to find as many homes as they could before the rest would become part of the circle of life and end up as food for those raptors. Now, at that time, I had never touched a rat. My only idea of how they might be was from my sister's hamster growing up as a child, who I still have scars on my arms from to this day. So to say I was excited to hold a rat was definitely not something I would say. However, as soon as I held one, I fell in love. Their fuzzy, water balloon-like bodies, the way they'd hold Cheerios with their little hands and nibble on them, the way they want to be in your sweatshirt hood just so that they can be close to you. Rats are very loving, social, and smart. From then on, I was hooked. Alicia and I took about 12 rats from that situation, and I have now personally adopted and rescued over 30 rats, most of which have been my pets. Quite a few times I have found people giving away rats for free for snake food, and so I take those rats, I get them healthy or socialized if needed, and I find them really good homes. One example looked just like this, and our friend Donna here made this for me once I found that rat a home and I was crying about it, so thank you, Donna. And with all my handling of rats, I've only been bitten once, and it was from a rat that was just rescued and was forced to fend for himself outside before. A couple of years ago, my husband and I went to a pet psychic event, yes, they exist, where a medium said she would receive messages from past pets, try to find their owners, and then give them the message. When she first started, she closed her eyes, kind of knocked her head over a little bit like that, and started laughing. She said that she had never had a session start with a group of rats. According to the medium, the rats were pretty loud, meaning they really wanted to get their message across. So after her saying a few more things that I would confirm, of course, they were trying to talk to me, she had a message for me. My past ratties were watching over me and sending me more animals to help. They also told us that we would be getting another cat within the year. Now, Danny and I had already decided that 4 cats was enough. But later that year, we felt drawn to a rescued laboratory cat and adopted her. But Danny can't be mad at me, it was the rat's idea. In this extremely limited period of my life that I find myself now, where I'm not able to do much because of my health, I have been trying to find ways that I can help animals more. I can't foster or adopt more pets, but I can still drive. So I've become a transport volunteer for PDX Cat Trapper that humanely traps stray and feral cats, gets them fixed or other medical attention, and works with adoption partners to find the friendly ones homes. I also transport for Little Critter Crew that helps rats and other small animals. And I transport for Beagle Freedom Project, who saves animals from laboratories. Throughout my struggles with my mental health when I was younger, and now my physical health, I have pondered the question many times of why am I here? When I look at the abuse I have experienced or the cruel hands that these animals are touched by, I can't always answer that cosmic question of why so much suffering exists. But I have realized that the world of animal rescue is my own way of stepping into the forest. Caring for them gives me purpose. Snuggling with them grounds my thoughts. Protecting them is how I choose to alleviate the suffering I can control, and that gives me fuel for another day. I don't know if I believe in fate, but one thing I do know is that animals keep me around. For as long as I can, I want to continue stepping into my sanctuary, helping everything from the tiny, squishy rat to the giant, goofy Great Dane, because they are my forest, and animals are why I'm here.
I need to start this talk with some disclaimers. I'm about to talk about an aspect of Hindu philosophy that I've read about, but I'm not Hindu. I'm also not a scholar who has studied the Hindu religion extensively. And finally, Hindu words are new to me, and they're sometimes strange sounding to my American ear, and while I looked up how to pronounce them, there's a good chance that I'm going to blow it, at least some of the time. What got me interested in Hindu philosophy was stumbling into the belief that life is a journey divided into 4 distinct stages. I thought this was rather exciting, partly because Western religions don't seem to offer a similar concept, and also because, as my daughter Margeb just announced, I retired last month. And the standard American perspective on retirement is rather dismal. You're going to decline and to become useless, or perhaps worse, old is bad, young is good, time to get a facelift. The Hindu belief about the stage I'm entering is far more positive and uplifting. Aging is not all about decline. Yeah, we'll admit the knees go bad, the hips go bad, yeah. And it's not about denial either. Rather, it is a time of ripening. Okay, let's back up a moment. I said there are 4 stages of life according to Hinduism, so let's do a quick review. The first stage, called brahmacharya, is when the individual is young and is a student. In former times, this applied only to boys and only to the upper castes, but modern Hindus are more inclusive. The duties of the student are to work with their teachers and accumulate wisdom, and they're expected to learn all that is necessary to live a good and spiritually positive life. In the second and longest stage, called grihustha, which literally means householder, the individual establishes their career and builds financial stability and lives in a house or a home and has a marriage and a family and fulfills societal as well as religious duties. Hindus value a successful marriage, but it's acknowledged that some Hindus will not marry, nor will they raise children. The householder stage, which we all know well, is when the individual is most actively engaged in the outside world. In American society, it's widely believed that this is the stage that matters the most, and it's certainly the one we pay the most attention to. But for Hindus, it's only one of 4 stages, and not necessarily the most significant one. The third stage is the one that I'm focused on right now, Brahmaprastha. It's called the forest dweller stage. The children have grown, they've left the house, the career is waning. It's time to let go of material objects, to step back from worldly obligations, and to turn inward. Now, the fourth and the final stage is called sunyasa, and that's when the individual detaches entirely from the world. One prepares for death and focuses on the attainment of ultimate spiritual liberation. For now, I'd like to do a deeper dive into the third stage, Vanaprastha, the forest dweller stage, the passage into retirement, a time when competing to gain more and be responsible and be in control, all of that yields to letting go. And that is letting go of outward facing and focusing more inward. This could mean downsizing one's possessions, clearing out space for a less cluttered life, deepening important relationships, taking time to find joy in simpler things, and feeling grateful for what we have. Where the householder stage is often focused on performance and attainment, the forest dweller stage is about listening for the deeper meaning and awareness, things that cost nothing but bring us closer to what is holy. So let's go into the forest. For many of us, the forest is part of our spiritual practice. When we enter the forest, the noise and chaos created by human beings, cars and trains and motorcycles, that fades away, and the light softens, and we breathe in, and the air feels cleaner. And we hear the sounds of birds calling each other. Small animals like chipmunks and rabbits cross our path and scurry away to do whatever they're doing that's important to them. And we gaze at the trees, and we see beings who are older and quieter and more patient than we are. And we watch the leaves move on the trees, and perhaps we see the trees swaying in a gentle breeze. And rather than concrete or asphalt, we feel earth beneath our feet. And if we look straight up into the canopy of the trees, we see slivers of sunlight seeping through, giving us warmth and light. I sometimes wonder if the architects of the ancient cathedrals in Europe were trying to imitate the majesty of the forest to provide those people with a sense of awe and peace and well-being. The forest is a rich, complex, and interconnected world where different forms of life coexist, and being there brings us into contact with something that is larger, purer, and older than we are. The forest is a world where we can look, listen, and be. We're invited into it at any stage of life, as Heather has attested to, but to live there by special invitation is the retiree's calling, the retiree who is transitioning into wisdom keeper. Today, few Hindus physically move into the forest, but they do spend more time in spiritual contemplation, as well as doing volunteer work for those in need, going on a pilgrimage, or visiting a Hindu monastery or ashram. According to one author, what distinguishes Vanaprastha is its transitional nature. The forest dweller may still live with the family, still advise children, still play a role in society, but the center of gravity shifts. The outward call of responsibility is balanced by the inward call of wisdom. A person is no longer defined by striving, but by seeking, no longer measured by conquest, but by clarity. The forest dweller concept can offer us a more holistic perspective on how those of us who are seniors can contribute to our families and our communities. If we choose to, we can cultivate presence and awareness as we relinquish control and step away from the spotlight. We can exhale as we stop climbing the ladder of success, but we can still guide and nurture others. We can offer advice, or not, rather than issuing commands. We're not so much retreating from the world as we are redefining our contribution to it. It's a softer, gentler way to be, because we can be present more rather than scurrying around and doing more. The forest dweller is an elder who can serve as a mentor, a teller of old stories and oral traditions, a keeper of the sacred memories that we hold as a result of us having lived a full life. Another author wrote, Vanaprastha can be deeply communal. It dignifies the role of seniors, not as competitors for relevance, but as guides. It reframes presence not as holding power, but as releasing it wisely. In a society often obsessed with youth, such a model can be transformative. Vanaprastha is a time to once again ask the important questions, the ones that scared us when we were young and thought of getting old as failure and thought of death as the enemy. We've lived, we've loved, we've been broken, we've healed. Those big questions have become old friends, and they take on a different tone than they did when we were 20 and had far less mileage behind us. Why are we alive? Why were we born? Why do we die? Where do we go when we die? Does God really exist? Why or why not? And why are we driven to ask these questions? And if I spend the rest of my life asking these questions, am I going to find answers? Will I get closer to the eternal truth? You know, another name for Hinduism is Sanatan Dharma, which means the eternal truth of life. Now, that may have one meaning for a Hindu, but what does that mean to you and me? Eternal truth of life. I love science, and science answers how, but it can't answer why. For example, when we consider the Big Bang, scientists have developed this wonderful theory for how that happened, but we still struggle with the why. Why did something as massive as a universe come from one tiny point? Where did that tiny point come from? Why did a universe form where none existed before? Was it coincidence, or is there some intelligent force at work? These are big questions. These are important questions, and they're worth pondering. And for me, this is the time to return to being a student and exploring the many things I put aside when I was building my career and raising my family. I'll close with a wise offering from another author. Empires have risen and fallen on the strength of ambition. Generations pursued the promise of more land, more wealth, more renown. Yet in every civilization, wisdom has whispered a different truth, that the pursuit of conquest must one day give way to the pursuit of meaning. And in our lives, the same arc unfolds. The decades of career and family building eventually soften into a new season where questions of purpose and legacy matter more than promotion or possession. Our calling as forest dwellers is to bring more joy, more awe, and deeper understanding to each day of our lives. When you look at it that way, what a wonderful time of life to be in.